Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. I hope everyone's out there doing their natural history. If you find any reindeer or elves, be sure to report them to the Natural History Survey. We will love to hear about them. The video that you're about to watch was recorded during our 2025 Awards Luncheon, held on November 22nd at the Elks in South Kingstown. You can find the exact timings of the remarks for the different award recipients in the comment section down below. I hope that if you aren't already a subscriber to the Natural History Survey's YouTube channel, that you will subscribe and hit the bell so you'll hear about all of our new videos. We have a bunch of new videos in the can. I know there's been a gap since the last video, but there'll be lots of interesting things coming up. Maybe something to watch on those long, cold winter nights. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you out there. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rhode Island Natural History Survey's 2025 Awards Luncheon, I guess is what we're calling this. It's a nice place to be with family on a cold, rainy Saturday afternoon. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming today to honor the award recipients and to learn some more about what's going on in natural history in Rhode Island, and to catch up, meet and catch up with people doing interesting things all around the state. So I'm David Gregg. I'm the director of the Rhode Island Natural History Survey. And now I'd like to introduce Sarah Gaines. To continue with the introduction, Sarah is the president of the survey's board of directors. She and I both developed our naturalist interests at the Woods Hole Children's School of Science, in fact. She trained in earth sciences and is now a coastal resource manager at GSO. And so she is going to kick off the program. Sarah.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, David. Thanks a lot to all of you for being with us today. You know, members are such an important part of what makes the Rhode Island Natural History Survey work. And it involves members out, you know, in the state discovering things, but also showing up for these events to celebrate each other. So, you know, one of the real joys of being involved with the survey is getting to spend time with all of you. So thank you for being with us today. So we have been celebrating the Distinguished Naturalist since 1994, which was the same year the survey was established. You know, so now we're in our 31st year, and we've been celebrating this Distinguished Naturalist Award for that full time. The GoldenEye, Posthumous, and Founders Awards were added subsequently. But this idea of celebrating excellence in being a naturalist is really core to the way we work. And just acknowledging that we all have a role to play as naturalists, but also in celebrating our local heroes. It's part of achieving the survey's mission. And I just wanted to highlight, we do have a new strategic plan. If you haven't seen it, there are hard copies on the side table. We worked on it. It was a board-led exercise that we did for our 30th anniversary. And the vision that we identified during that exercise is very relevant to the whole point of the Naturalist Award, and that is to prompt a sense of wonder that inspires people to value and protect biodiversity through a deeper understanding of the world around us. And I really think that our awardees today do an excellent job of achieving that vision. So thank you in helping us do that work. Part of what I really appreciate about these awards is they're celebrating these incredible individuals of the state. We talked about curious observers of all age in our mission of our new strategic plan. We're not necessarily awarding people for advanced degrees or scholarly publications. I mean, that's part of being a naturalist, but that's not all of it. So I think, you know, the collection of people we're acknowledging today are really a much, you know, fuller version of what it is to be a naturalist. You know, we're celebrating passionate amateurs, educators, communicators. We really are redefining what is a naturalist and how do we make contributions to our understanding of the nature in the state and our relationship in that nature. So, you know, I really appreciate all of you and their work to build this sense of wonder. The board really felt very strongly about that idea of sense of wonder at the heart of the work we do. So anyways, glad that you're here today, glad that we're celebrating the sense of wonder and the people who build that sense of wonder. Thank you for being one of our members. Thank you for being here today. a little bit of logistics as we reach the end of the year. Thank you for the many members who've just renewed in our recent membership renewal drive. Keep your eyes out. We have an annual appeal letter coming out very shortly. And we have an exciting incentive this year. We have some matches. It's just something we haven't done before. So this is the first year we're working towards matches. If we can meet our goal of $45,000 by the end of the year, 2 generous donors have said they will give a total of $15,000 to the Godzilla Research Fund, which is supporting mostly young people in the state doing research on the nature of the state. And then there's another double match on top of that. So basically, if we get to $45,000, we'll get another $45,000. And so we'd get to $90,000, which would really be an accomplishment this year. So please keep your eyes out for that annual appeal letter. If you have any questions about this work or any of our work, please don't hesitate to talk to the board members who just saw stand up. And then, as David said, please, be comfortable, help yourself to the delicious buffet for dessert. We have coffee and there's plenty of soup. So thank you for joining us, and let us get on to the awards. Thanks.
So the first award we're going to give is the Golden Eye Award. The Golden Eye is perhaps the most interesting award, at least in my book. So we're going to start with the Golden Eye, and that will get us off to a good start. The Golden Eye Award recognizes a naturalist for reporting an extraordinary field find. It's a new species in Rhode Island, a rare thing, an invasive thing, a phenomenon that nobody had ever noticed before, something like that. And this award is nominated by the staff and then approved by the board of directors. But it doesn't just recognize luck, like, oh, I stumbled across this weird thing nobody had seen before. And it doesn't recognize just knowledge. It recognizes the application of knowledge over a long time to make luck, to find an extraordinary thing and say, it actually takes an extra leap to say, I've never seen that before. That's unusual. And then you need another leap to say, I've got to find out what this means, and then track down somebody who can tell you what it means if you don't know what it means. And then even once you get to that point, if you just go, that's really cool, and walk home, you haven't really advanced us anywhere. So it also recognizes sharing what you learn. So the Golden Eye recognizes perseverance, identification, biological and ecological knowledge, curation and record keeping, and communication. To paraphrase a board member, some people get lucky, a few people make their own luck through hard work, and only a very few people work hard, get lucky, know how lucky they are, and take the time to share what they found. Those are the people we want to recognize with a Golden Eye Award. So the Golden Eye started in 2008. We awarded it to Matt Ricker, a URI student who was the first to find water chestnut, and a horrible invasive in the state. We also recognized Doug McGrady in 2009 for his dozens of rare plant finds that he had found to that point. We recognized Aaron Hunt in 2016 for cataloging 1,300 species of moth on Block Island. So you can get this award for finding invasive things. A lot of them are those, but also for finding rare things or really just making a big contribution. And this year we're awarding the Golden Eye Award for 2 people who found the small whorled pogonia, a native orchid. It was state historic until this spring. It hadn't been seen in 20 years. We had given up hope. This is a species that's of enormous regional interest. We've gotten requests from all over the country for our historic records on small whorled pogonia because people are interested in modeling its decline and modeling its habitat. And so now we're providing more than just historic data. We have these 2 people to thank for putting Rhode Island literally back on the small whorled pogonia map. Wild orchids, if any of you are familiar with them, are extremely odd and difficult plants to learn about and deal with. And so having this data point is just huge. So we'd like to recognize Robin Baranowski and Jim Natale with Golden Eye Award. Kurt, can you do the honors?
Do you need some photos?
Sure.
All right. So this orchid that we found, we weren't looking for anything. We were just there to enjoy the preserve. And, I'm looking through this highly degraded forest of barberry and bittersweet and dying ash. And it was a former pasture land. It's like 50 feet from a parking lot. And so I'm just looking around, expecting nothing. And then I see the small world pogonia, and I couldn't believe my eyes. So it was the find of, I guess, my botany career. So I'm super psyched, and we're going to go back next year and see if we can find some more.
And I'd just like to say that we wouldn't have found this if we weren't wandering, as me and Jim usually do. We're like, let's go out in the woods and, go off trail. I know it's not a popular thing to do, but we go out in the woods and wander. So I implore everyone to get out in the woods and maybe somewhere you haven't been and get off the trail and look around, because there's probably stuff out there. And also, this plant was surrounded by barberry. So we'd like to get that out of there if we can try. But if you have any invasives, I visit many, many spots every year, and the same spots every year. We need to do new ones. But I've noticed the most insane increase of invasives the past 2 years. So if you have them in your yard, please get rid of them. If you see them out in parks, pull them, if you're allowed to, in that area. But yeah, let's get rid of the invasives so we give these rare plants a chance.
Okay, so the next award is the first of the Distinguished Naturalist Awards. So the Distinguished Naturalist Awards were created to recognize people who make significant contributions to scientific knowledge of Rhode Island's environment and organisms, and/or is recognized as an outstanding teacher or educator about the natural world, and/or has significantly enhanced public awareness of the importance of understanding Rhode Island's ecosystems. But as Sarah said, this is not necessarily for the most accomplished professionals, most accomplished scholars. If it's your job to do whatever natural historical thing you've done, that's great. But if you had a day job doing something else and you still did some natural historical accomplishment, well, that really deserves extra recognition. And it's also not just for scientific discoveries necessarily, or acquiring scientific knowledge. Again, that's great and all. But for a whole package of understanding what it is and communicating it. It's not just for teaching. There are teaching awards. This is for that package. This is for somebody who really goes the extra mile and brings us knowledge and accomplishment that we can't get by just any one of these three things by itself. We don't have, this is Rhode Island. It's a small place. We don't have a concrete skyscraper full of professional scientists and an expert in every possible thing. We're beholden to the experts who are amateurs. It takes decades to learn to recognize hundreds of moths or scores of mosses or a small world pogonia under a barberry bush. And the things that we need to know about the environment are being told to us by amateurs who do this as a hobby, or by people who have a job and then people just can't seem to leave their job at work and they bring it home. We are deeply beholden to people who are doing all of this for everything that we know about the environment in Rhode Island. And so we're trying to recognize that debt and repay it a little bit through these awards. Now, the first award we're going to give is the Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist Award. It was begun in 2000. And one of the purposes of the Distinguished Naturalist Award, one of the purposes of the Distinguished Naturalist Award is to recognize people while they're still here. But the Posthumous Award recognizes and continues the legacy of people who aren't here anymore. And we gave, the first Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist Award was in 2000, and it was awarded to Elizabeth Dickens, the bird lady of Block Island. And that is a good example of the kind of accomplishment that we want to recognize. But there's another one that I always come back to as really signifying the importance of the Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist Award, and that is Harriet Lathrop Merrow, who died in 1941. She was the first botanist at URI and a faculty of 25 people in 1895. There were only 6 women. She was a fellow of the American Academy for the Advancement of Science. And at a time when it was highly unlikely that the botany professor would be a woman, she had a sterling career of accomplishment at URI and helped set the university on the path that it's followed since. But hardly anybody had ever heard of her until I came across her name while we were cleaning papers out of Ranger Hall. And I asked, who is this person? In fact, at first it was H.L. Merrow, and I thought it was Henry or something like that. And Keith Killingbeck looked her up and told me, no, it's Harriet. So here's somebody who was essentially lost, to history and whose accomplishments are really worthy of remembering and are kind of valuable lessons to us even today. So it's a great example of why we give the Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist Award. To present the Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist Award for this year, we have Becky Kartzinel. Becky is a member of the Survey Board of Directors, and she is the director of the Brown University Herbarium and an assistant teaching professor at Brown in ecology and evolutionary biology. So, Becky.
The 2025 recipient of the Rhode Island Natural History Survey's Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist Award is James Franklin Collins. Collins was a silversmith by trade, working at Gorham Manufacturing Company in Providence, and originally a botanist only by avocation. He proved so adept at taxonomy and field research that he left silversmithing and enjoyed an accomplished career at the Brown University Herbarium and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Collins was widely recognized in his lifetime for his botanical accomplishments, and even though he exemplified the curiosity, diligence, and resourcefulness of a great natural historian, he is not well known now. It is hoped this award will go some way to remedying this oversight. So J. Franklin Collins was born on December 29, 1863 in North Anson, Maine. At 10 years old, he moved to Providence, Rhode Island, and originally found employment as a silversmith at Gorham. Collins was a self-taught botanist, collecting plants from childhood. As a young man, his energy and intelligence brought him to the attention of William Whitman Bailey, then head of the botany department at Brown University, and himself named a survey Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist in 2009. So Bailey appointed Collins as curator of the Brown University Olney Herbarium in 1894. Over the next few years, Collins continued his studies and took on teaching and other duties at Brown, which eventually allowed him to leave Gorham for good. Collins became the head of Brown's botany department after Bailey left in 1906, teaching, researching, and participating in botanizing expeditions throughout the region and beyond. His greatest adventures may have been explorations of Quebec's Gaspé Peninsula over the course of several summers, with distinguished company that included botanists Carroll W. Dodge, Ludlow Griscom, Kenneth Mackenzie, Arthur Stanley Pease, and Merritt L. Fernald. Lest you think that botanical fieldwork is tame, I found this in his obituary in the Providence Journal. of some anecdotes of his time in Quebec, scaling steep cliffs in search of plants. So, quote, "Adventure had studded Professor Collins's work in the field, hanging 200 feet below the brink of a 600-foot cliff on the Gaspé Peninsula. He and a fellow scientist heard bullets splatter around them as a rifleman below, luckily of mediocre aim, sought to make good on a dead or alive reward for 2 escaped convicts. Slung against the face of another cliff in the same area, he had fought off with one arm a persistent attack by gannets, huge-winged seabirds, while hauling himself to safety." Back home in Rhode Island, Collins helped open the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Office of Forest Pathology at Brown, where he studied chestnut blight and became known as an authority on the diagnosis and control of tree and shrub diseases and tree surgery, continuing until 1933. Through this, he also maintained his position as curator of the Brown Herbarium and continued his studies of plant taxonomy, bryology, and the flora of Rhode Island. His legacy on the natural and botanical history of the Northeast, and Rhode Island in particular, can be quantified by the thousands of preserved plant specimens that he archived at Brown and other regional New England herbaria. I did a search of digital herbarium records in New England, and I found upwards of 15,000 specimens collected by Collins. Most of these are not from those celebrated group expeditions to the Gaspé Peninsula, but collected solo by him much closer to home. Of these 15,000, approximately 9,000 were collected from Rhode Island and 6,000 from his home county of Providence over a near 60-year botanical career, beginning before he turned 20. He continued collecting well into his 70s, mostly in northern Rhode Island, until illness in the last few years of his life curtailed his fieldwork. He died in 1940 at age 77. In Collins's time, it was common for an academic botanist to participate in the amateur botany community, advising and speaking at local and regional societies, leading field expeditions, and publishing widely in both academic journals and society bulletins. Among a lengthy list of societies that he contributed to, Collins was the founding member and president of the Rhode Island Botanical Club, president of the New England Botanical Club, and president of the Rhode Island Field Naturalists Club. He authored the reference works A Checklist of Rhode Island Trees and A Flora of Rhode Island. With these contributions, Collins put botany in Rhode Island on a firm intellectual footing, transmitted practical skills to working arborists, and fostered a community of naturalists working together to understand the botany of the state and the region. So I will end with the closing lines from an obituary written by Walter Snell, his colleague at Brown, and last year's Posthumous Distinguished Naturalist. "There passed a man, one of unquestioned ability, attainments, and culture, who chose to avoid the swirl of complicated modern existence and live as a quiet botanist." So here to accept this year's Posthumous Distinguished Natural Award on behalf of Brown and James Franklin Collins is Dan Weinreich, who is the chair of the Ecology, Evolution, and Organismal Biology Department in Brown, which is the department that would be held under, the umbrella that the botany department that Franklin Collins headed. Yeah.
Perfect. To continue with the Distinguished Naturalist Award, I'd like to again bring up Sarah Gaines.
Okay, thanks very much. Please help yourself to dessert. This is not formal. So David's explained, the criteria for being selected to the Distinguished Naturalist Award. We have nominations that we receive, and every year we have quite a lot. We retain all the nominations for 5 years, so it's a very competitive process. And we're really delighted with this year's selection. Perhaps not least because she was a board member for years, as well as being the former president of the board of directors of the Rhode Island Natural History Survey. So this year's Distinguished Naturalist Award goes to someone who's, really at the heart of the work of the Natural History Survey. And maybe I can just speak personally. I have had a great pleasure of knowing Kim, both from the board where we've worked, early in my board membership when she would take the ferry once a month over to be in person at the board meetings. It required her to spend the night and then take the ferry back the next day. It was, a logistical commitment as well as a really, time-heavy commitment. And Kim always really approached her service to the board with a lot of heart and, as a really serious person who loves nature but also loved the people on the board. So it was really a great introduction to me, sort of how the board works and how the president could serve. So I really appreciate that. I've just been floored in her generosity in hosting our naturalist expedition on Block Island. I don't know how many of you, maybe with a show of hands, how many of you had a chance to go to Block Island and do our naturalist expedition? We have quite a few people in the room who had a chance to benefit from that. And Kim and I were just saying maybe the next one's coming in 5 years or so. So keep your eyes open. We'll do it again. It's a pretty extraordinary opportunity. Kim not only offers her family house, her cars, her enthusiasm, her expertise, her knowledge of the habitats of Block Island, and that event wouldn't happen without Kim. So it's been really incredible to see Kim in action on Block Island. And one fall, I visited Kim at the birding station with my family and friends outside of the expedition. And at that time, we had 4 young children, they're all under the age of 8 or 10. And we arrived by bicycle down this bumpy dirt road. And we were greeted by Kim as we passed through the stone gate to the Lapham bird banding station. I don't know the proper name, so maybe that's okay. It's been running since 1967, and Kim has been there banding birds since 1981. So this is really a long-term commitment. But we showed up, with all these kids, a little bit bedraggled. But immediately the kids got caught up in this search for rhinoceros beetles I guess it was under ash trees there, but they were really, into these big beetles. And Kim was answering the questions that they were peppering her with. And about 10 minutes into the hunt, Kim pulled her hand from behind her back, and she was holding a songbird in her hand that she'd been holding for the whole 10 minutes that we'd been there with her. And you can imagine all of us, especially the kids, were like, this is the coolest person I've ever met. And Kim made some, very appropriate comment about a bird in the hand. And then proceeded to give our family and friends a tour of the station and show us about bird banding. But, really one of the coolest people we've met. So we were all entranced. And clearly, we're not the only ones who've been entranced by Kim's work and her leadership and her model about how you study nature and care for nature and communicate about it. As the Block Island Times reported last week, there's a nice article about this award. And I quote, they say, the effects of her work are widespread, and her name is a byword for thoughtful, energetic, community-based natural history, which I think, they nailed it. And then I had a couple of quotes I wanted to share from the previous expeditions. And these come from my mother, who is now has perfect attendance at the expedition, so she'll be first one on the list to sign up if there's another opportunity. So these are coming from participants who spent a week with Kim on Block Island, who had that incredible opportunity, and they said, she has a sparkling personality and is a great educator. I don't want to embarrass you, but these are nice things. These are really nice. Her passion for sharing her knowledge is limitless, so inspiring to be around someone who loves what they do and gives so much. So, we really appreciate those words. We agree with them. And I am delighted to announce the 2025 Distinguished Naturalist Award goes to Kim Gaffett. I think you stay there. We have someone else who wants to embarrass you a little bit. So, it's now my pleasure to introduce Scott Cummings, the Associate State Director for the Rhode Island Nature Conservancy. And as a naturalist, conservationist, and longtime resident of Block Island, I don't think anyone is better placed to speak about Kim's qualifications for this award. So welcome, Scott. Thanks for being with us.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm new to microphones. Great. Well, I'm so honored to be here this afternoon to celebrate Kim and her much-deserved Rhode Island Natural History Survey Award for 2025, Distinguished Naturalist Award. I've worked with Kim for more than 35 years, hard to believe, but it's true, and I can think of no one more deserving. Block Island's been blessed the last 115 years or so to always have remarkable pioneering naturalists, including previous Rhode Island Natural History Survey Award winners Elizabeth Dickens and one of Kim's mentors, Elise Lapham. Kim is the next in this rich and robust tradition. When I think about Kim's contribution and impact, I think about the phrase, think globally and act locally. Kim does this every day. The accumulation of her work on the island has a ripple effect to mainland Rhode Island, southern New England, and beyond. Kim has done so much to earn this recognition, from overseeing the third longest running banding station on the East Coast each spring and fall, to carrying out dozens of community-based science projects over the years, to attracting a multitude of visiting scientists each summer to the island, and to teaching the community about this work and its importance. Kim has devoted her life to the collection of data on so many different species while always looking to do more. Her amazing capacity to do this work is unmatched. In this time of transition in the natural world, Kim's long-term data set and observations will be used by generations to come to understand the accelerated changes to our natural world. In addition to Kim's contributions as a naturalist and nature educator, she has done so much volunteer leadership work on boards, commissions, and the Block Island Town Council to share the information that she has gained, improve, and shape policy. It is in this generation on Block Island and beyond, no one has given more time, energy, and themselves to the important and often thankless work. I could go on and on about Kim's wonderful credentials, but there's one thing that stands out more than the others to me, and that is her impact on the next generation. Throughout her whole career, Kim has worked with school children, sharing her infectious love of the natural world, and has changed many lives. I see it now with my own young kids who love Kim and spending time with her. My oldest is one of Kim's kinderbirds, who look forward to her visit to her kindergarten classroom every week, and Kim shares her adventures of the natural world. And she is often a conversation topic at our dinner, and I would argue that is the definition of true impact. If it was not for Kim's efforts, Block Island would surely be a much different place. I look forward to Kim's continued work, for this award in my mind is not only a celebration of what Kim has done, but more importantly, what she's going to do in the future. For she is always looking for the next thing to show up, to roll up her sleeves and put in the work to make it happen. In closing, being a naturalist, a scientist, an educator in service to others is Kim's life's work. She does not seek this recognition, but this makes her even more worthy in my mind of this award. So congratulations and thank you, Kim.
There's one more person who we've asked who would like to say a few words about Kim's contributions, and I think given how broad her impact has been, it's appropriate that we have lots of people who can bring perspective. So I'd like to call Erica Anderson to come up as part of the family that has been the overseer and stewards of the banding station and its surrounds, and I think a partner of and friend of Kim's for many, many years. I think it's appropriate that we hear your remarks as well. So thank you.
Ooh, microphones. I'll warn you, I'm going to get emotional right off the bat. I practiced so it didn't work. Excuse me. So I'm Erica Anderson. I am Elise Lapham's granddaughter. We have had the banding station since 1967, when my grandmother learned to band from a neighbor, and Kim showed up along the way. So, and pardon me, I normally do paper, and I don't normally do screens. So, Kim Gaffett has been part of our family's lives on Block Island for over 40 years. She is the person we look forward to seeing when we arrive. She is the one we call when we can't figure out how to get something done on the island. And she is the one who purchased trees to plant as a memorial for my aunt when she died. And she was a great companion to my grandmother, especially in the last 10 years of her life. As you know, as a naturalist and representative of the Ocean View Foundation, she does many things, but for us, her deepest connection has always been through bird banding. 45 years ago this October, Kim began helping my grandmother, Elise Lapham, and my aunt, Helen Lapham, with banding at our house on Block Island. In those early days, the banding station was set up in a dim room, no windows, and the banding done on top of the washing machine. I still remember visiting during one of my first fall banding seasons around age 18 and meeting Kim for the first time. I wondered who this person was who had come to help. Little did I know she would become such an integral part of our family, family, and that seeing and catching up with Kim would be one of the reasons we look forward to our visits to the island. Much has changed since then. The banding station now has its own room and is filled with light and space, with multiple volumes of records, photos of memorable birds, feathers, and shelves of reference and guidebooks. Yet the essential work continues, with Kim leading the way, helped by many volunteers and friends. Over the years, Kim became increasingly involved in the banding process at our house. After my aunt died, she and my grandmother ran the station together. Hannah, as my grandmother was known, would rise early to make the coffee, and Kim would arrive soon after for the first net check. If you know Kim, you'll know how much she appreciated the coffee. Hannah continued to band into her 90s, with Kim gradually taking on more of the responsibilities of banding, but also being a friend and companion with Hannah. Kim also stepped into many other roles related to banding, teaching the second graders from the Block Island School who come every year, working with the Connecticut and Rhode Island Audubon groups, and on slow days at the nets, she would hold birds from the first check, so there would be a bird for nearly every hand that came to learn. Kim has spoken many times about the legacy of the bird women of Block Island, Elizabeth Dickens, Elise Dickerson, and Elise Lapham. That legacy, one that began for us in 1967, has lived on because of her. Our station is now in its 58th year. The species have changed, and the numbers have changed, but Kim's steady presence and the tradition of women leading banding on Block Island has remained constant. Kim's patience with every person, young or old, nervous or excited, as she teaches them how to place their fingers around a bird and gently cradle it for release, is one of the great joys to witness. Seeing the look on someone's face as they free a bird for the first time or the 100th is something she never takes for granted. She once shared something Hannah told her early on. Elise told me when I first started that there is nothing like the face of a child who has just held a live bird, and let it flit away. If you can get them interested in birds, you can get them interested in where those birds are going or where they have come from, their habitats, not only here but in Canada where they may be nesting, and in Central America where they may be overwintering. It's a great connection. The connection between birds and land stewardship is by necessity interrelated, and it starts right here, looking at this little guy letting a bird go for the first time. Kim took those words to heart and has spent decades ensuring that this connection is passed down through the generations. She brings endless enthusiasm and joy to everything in nature. If she hears about an unusual bird or sighting, she's ready to hop in the car. She is the person everyone calls for an injured bird or anything out of the ordinary. When Chris Blaine caught a snowy owl, Kim was the first call to come band it. We have watched her band barn owls, sharp-shinned hawks, and other birds with formidable talons and beaks, always calm, gentle, and fearless. Her enthusiasm about all things in nature, burying beetles, spring beauty flowers, eels in the little creek by the nets, and so many other things inspire me to look around and pay attention to what is out there. Watching Kim mentor young people is equally gratifying. I remember Jameson, whose mother is here today, who would show up as a little boy in his neat clothes, identification books tucked under his arm. She taught him the characteristics needed to identify birds, and he absorbed everything, her young apprentice for several years. It seemed for a time he might grow up to take her place, but sports and other interests eventually won out. Still, the skills, curiosity, and love of nature she instilled in him, I'm sure, remain with him to this day. For us, it has always been primarily about the banding, but Kim does so much more for the island. Her soup and film nights at the library, her crazy as a coot from wherever you are walk, horseshoe crab tagging, summer nature programs, newspaper articles, and the wonderful video and Zoom presentations she created during COVID are all part of the remarkable range of programs she brings to our community. It's been great to participate near and far in all these wonderful ways to bring nature and the observations of what's around us into our daily lives. 19 years ago, Kim, I knew this was going to happen. Kim presented this award to my grandmother, Elise Lapham, offering a moving tribute to Hannah and to our family's history on Block Island. I am honored today to express my gratitude for all Kim has done in continuing that tradition, and grateful that she is such a large part of our life and family on Block Island. Thank you.
The picture on the announcement, Kurt took. He's been my paparazzi for years.
That's the only reason I go to Block Island, and now my work is done. There you go.
All right, is that this one? Can you hear it? All right. Well, I have some remarks prepared. Of course, listening to everybody, it's actually quite an overlap, and it makes stories I've heard makes me want to jump in and add on to those and forget what I wrote. First of all, I want to say that as much fun as the Block Island Adventure Week-Long Natural History Week is not just because of me. It could not happen without Kyra Stillwell. Absolutely could not happen. And it's true, Jameson, I'll never forget Jameson, and he has moved on. He's a big Red Sox fan, so of course I always root for the Orioles. He broke my heart a little bit, or softened it last year when he came up to the bird banding to show it off to his girlfriend and his girlfriend's parents. We were really slow on birds. I said, go take a walk, I'll try to get some more birds. And they came back engaged. So I think it's really meaningful that that's such a meaningful spot for Jameson. So, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for the board, for the staff, Kyra, David, for all of you, my friends, my family, my colleagues, people who've come from that I knew years and years and years ago and worked with, and people I just worked with and met this summer. So thank you so much for sharing this with me today. And I've talked to many of you, but I hope to talk to many of you later as well. So feel free to come up and ask any questions. This is being billed as Musings of a Would-Be Naturalist, and I thought I should maybe explain that a little bit. Why musings? I'm not accustomed to speeches and lectures. My way of thought and sharing information, especially nature topics, is more stream of consciousness. It's connecting tangential thoughts, maybe hoping to elicit wonder, curiosity, amazement, surprise, making connections, sometimes obvious connections, sometimes not. In a word, musings and slightly disjointed, so hang on. I was surprised by this nomination, although my current job title does include the word naturalist. I'm not sure I've ever felt like a bona fide naturalist, although I have for a long time aspired to be one and thought it would be great. It's a nice catch-all phrase or term. It doesn't pin you down. You're not an ornithologist or an entomologist or a teacher or a researcher. You don't have to choose one thing to be good at, to be great at. You can do a lot of things and be okay at. So that's appealing to me. I like that. I first used the term naturalist for myself in the mid-1980s when I was filling out an income tax form, and I had to list my occupation. And at the time, I really didn't have an occupation. I lived on Block Island, and I had a lot of part-time jobs. I worked at the hardware store as a clerk. I was a community action worker, a school bus driver, a substitute teacher, a bird bander helper, aide to the DEM summer nature walk leaders. None of the occupations listed in the form fit. So I chose other, and wrote in naturalist. But I really wasn't sure what a naturalist was, or whether I did or ever would meet the qualifications for that job title. All these years later, I still use naturalist on my tax forms. And most of these last 40 years, I've really questioned whether or not I was really a bona fide naturalist, or just someone who really likes and is fascinated by nature. So, a would-be naturalist. Once I was alerted that I was to receive this honor, and after I waded through the thoughts of, there's been a mistake. There are others who are more obviously naturalists, not me, a would-be naturalist. And after attempting to convince David Gregg that there was still time to make another selection, obviously I failed, I started thinking that I better find out what a naturalist is. And by the way, what is a natural history survey? Any natural history survey. I'm of a certain age. My mother is a librarian, so of course I started to look at a book. The book was The Great Naturalist, edited by Robert Huxley, and that's from the Museum of Natural History in London, England. A really interesting book with short bios and accomplishments of all the great naturalists, from Aristotle to Charles Darwin, Alfred Wallace, and Asa Gray. But it didn't really help with the question, what is a naturalist? The synopsis of each naturalist seemed to describe the pastime of a wealthy person with leisure time and resources for exploration and expeditions, or the pastime of a person with limited means who was willing to sacrifice income for time afield. At best, an observation person who discovered things. Not really what I was thinking a naturalist would be in my era. So, of course, I had to leave books and go to the internet, and I got this AI response. A naturalist is a person who studies the natural world, often by observing and interacting with plants, animals, and their environments directly. This can involve a wide range of activities, from field observation and collecting specimens to educating the public and protecting habitats. A naturalist may have a formal scientific background, like Charles Darwin, or be an enthusiast who develops a deep understanding and appreciation for nature. Okay, I could see that as a good description of a naturalist. Not exactly or necessarily a job, but a way of being, an avocation. I can even see that as describing how I interact with the nature and the environment. So maybe we're getting there. When I tell people that I'm a member of the Rhode Island Natural History Survey and have been for 30 years, or that I was going off island to a Rhode Island Natural History Board meeting or event, a conference, a lecture, a BioBlitz, a field trip, etc., I would inevitably be trying to explain what is a natural history survey and what does it do. It seems that natural history survey is not immediately obvious entity. So I thought, okay, let's parse out these words. Rhode Island, that's pretty obvious. Nature, pretty obvious. Natural history, a little more problematic. What is natural history? The key is going back to the root of the word history, which comes from the Greek word historia, which means inquiry or knowledge from inquiry. In turn, the Greek historia is rooted in histor, meaning witness or expert. Okay, natural history is knowledge of nature by being inquisitive and by direct observation. Okay, starting to get there. Then there's the word survey, an awkward word, because in these days, you're most likely to think of being surveyed about political opinions and how satisfied you were in your last doctor's appointment. Or you think of a land surveyor who has described land by metes and bounds. Eventually you come around to our intended meaning, to survey an area to see what is there. Rhode Island Natural History Survey is both a noun and a verb. As an entity, it is the surveyor. But also, the Natural History Survey functions to actively oversee, to look closely, to collect data and observations. In other words, the Rhode Island Natural History Survey surveys Rhode Island for natural history. Okay, we're getting there, right? The mission statement on the survey's website probably does the best job. To promote ecosystem resilience, the Rhode Island Natural History Survey collects, organizes, disseminates information on Rhode Island's biodiversity and ecosystems. We engage curious observers of all ages, professionals and amateurs, scientists and artists, in field-based experiences that build connections to science, conservation, and the natural world. So, a natural history survey is a group would be one that looks, observes, tracks, documents, and all natural things and systems within a defined area, in this case, Rhode Island. When I was on the board, we were always trying to figure out how to describe what a natural history survey was. So that was uppermost in my mind. I think most people in this room probably already have an idea. Rhode Island Natural History Survey is important beyond its mission statement. Yes, it collects natural history information and makes it available to be shared. But more importantly, the sharing is not just online or in a report or on a spreadsheet. The Rhode Island Natural History Survey creates in-person events like this one, where the like-minded people can gather to learn, and more importantly, to be naturalist geeks together. Part of the reason I have been a 30-year member is because of these human opportunities. Conferences and lectures and BioBlitz and field trips allow for synergy beyond two-dimensional data. Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen farther, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." In more modern and personal parlance, where I have excelled, it is because I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me, both direct supporters and mentors, and those who have inspired me from distance of time and space. Certainly, all of my bird work and my conservation ethic grew and developed from standing on the shoulders of several Block Island people. Elise Lapham taught me everything about bird banding and more. She started the bird banding station at Clay Head in 1967 at the age of 55. Imagine starting a huge body of work that is so meaningful when you're at 55. We all have more to give. So I always found that very inspirational. Her Block Island conservation work is most evident at Clay Head and as the founding board member of the Block Island Conservancy. Over 30 years of friendship and mentorship. She probably wouldn't have called it mentorship. Elise taught me so much, not just which bird is which, but also patience, the importance of open space, the value of welcoming visitors to the station. She saw it as an opportunity. We heard a little bit of that from Erica, that if they learned about bird needs there, they could transfer that newfound interest in birds and what habitat needs they require elsewhere. And she always said, and make a difference in their own place by starting out on Block Island. She always said to me, once I put a bird in your hand, you're never the same. And it's true. I have put birds in many hands, as she had, and it just makes you feel different. Elise Lapham was taught by Elise Dickerson, who was only on Block Island for about 2 years, about 2 weeks every fall, participating in something called Project Recovery, which was an early bird banding program. She was a professor from New Jersey, and she was banding at the north end of the property abutting the Lapham's land at Clay Head. And she got interested, what was Elise Dickerson doing? And so Elise Lapham became her student for a year or two. And probably not, I wouldn't have called it a student. She was a sub-permittee of the master permit, Elise Dickerson. I didn't know Elise Dickerson personally, but I stand on her shoulders too. I also did not know Elizabeth Dickens personally, the bird lady of Block Island, but I've been a student of her life, her bird collection, journals. She has journals of recordings of 50 years of daily observations. Those journals are at the Audubon Society of Rhode Island. And the bird collection of stuffed specimens is the Block Island School. They're birds that her students brought to her, and she arranged to have taxidermied and become part of the school collection. That collection is still used today for teaching bird study, for teaching art, for teaching sometimes anatomy. This year I'll be working with a senior on her senior project, reorganizing the bird collection, collecting it, teaching her about migration paths, and it continues to teach all kinds of people in different ways. Elizabeth Dickens taught generations of students and Block Islanders bird study at the Block Island School. They were monthly lessons taught about birds, but also about their place in the landscape and the value of open space. It wouldn't have been called a land ethic back then, but that's what it was. Elizabeth Dickens died just before I was school age, but bird study carried on with one of her students, Merrill Slate. I had Mr. Slate for bird study right through my senior year at school in Block Island. I stand on their shoulders too. Josie Merck started the Ocean View Foundation in 2000, a nonprofit environmental education organization. For me, what started as a very part-time commitment to help shepherd the building of the Ocean View Pavilion site and create opportunities for the public to engage with nature resulted in our creating, over 17 years, a full-fledged nature and environmental education program, complete with a would-be naturalist. In 2017, that program shifted to the Nature Conservancy on Block Island. Josie Merck, through an endowment, created the Ocean View Foundation, the Ocean View Naturalist Perch. That's my title. Nature's version of an endowed chair. Without Josie's vision, creativity, support, and desire to make a difference in the world, I would not be standing here. It was in those 17 years that I evolved to become a naturalist. Josie's shoulders provided the opportunity for me to explore and create a myriad of ways to pursue natural history work. That work includes attending to the important connection between art and nature. It includes supporting community science projects so that a great variety of people can be involved in natural history. It includes doing work that illustrates that small actions can gain big results. Through the Ocean View Foundation, I had the incredible leeway to imagine and experiment with a variety of ways to connect people and nature. But it was not just me. The opportunity to collaborate and dream how we might make a difference could only have been done with Josie and me as collaborators. She is the artist with the naturalist's eye, and I am the naturalist with the artist's eye. The shoulders on which I stand are not limited to people I actually know. I have been inspired by many great naturalists. I will never be able to say the names of them all. They are too numerous, and some I haven't even met yet. But here's a sampling. Rachel Carson, her environmental writing in Silent Spring is inspirational on many levels. But her nature writing, Under the Sea Wind, and many other books were beautiful. And one of my favorites of hers started out as an essay, and after her death became a book, A Sense of Wonder. And it's a book that extols the virtues of having caring adults take young people out in nature. Don't list them, fill them up with facts. The most important thing is for adults to take kids out and lead by example of exploration and wonder. E.O. Wilson, he is a prolific writer and, of course, known for his research with ants and many other things. But also he probed the edge of hard science by promoting the ideas of biophilia, the innate human need to connect with nature. E.B. White, of course known for Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little, these books would not be so engaging without these keen observations of nature and so many non-human creatures inside and out. Bernd Henrich, a prolific nature observer and writer. Again, the titles are numerous: Winter World, Summer World, Mind of the Raven. Nature writing can do so much to teach and inspire awe, even reverence. Robin Wall Kimmerer, an indigenous botanist and a writer, braiding sweetgrass and recently the serviceberry, among other writings, describes nature beautifully, but more importantly, insists in her work that we examine our connection and relationship with nature. John McPhee, he wrote Coming into Nature, Founding Fish. By the way, that's the American shad. Encounters with the Arch Druid. He writes a broad array of topics, many of it nature-based, but he makes you think. And I've read his books almost my whole entire life, adult life. Jane Goodall, of course, is on many people's mind of late. Her emphatic, you make a difference, and her faith that we can, we will, we must take action on behalf of Earth and her inhabitants. Elizabeth Colbert, another prolific writer, often seen in the New Yorker. She wrote a book called The Sixth Extinction. It's about the 5 great mass extinctions and what caused them and how the Earth survived. All of these writers have taught me, inspired me, and propelled me off of their shoulders towards greater understanding of the intricacies of nature and Homo sapiens' unbalanced place within nature. Well, if not a greater understanding, at least acknowledgement that it's complicated. I've tried to identify some basic principles that do and will continue to guide my work. You must know a place to love a place, and you must love a place to care and or save a place. Or, to save a place, you must love that place, and to love that place, you must know that place. This applies to any place, a backyard, a neighborhood, a park, Block Island, the Antarctic, etc. I first internalized this precept from a film called 180 Degrees South. It was about the early work of Yvonne Chouinard and Doug Tompkins trying to save land in Patagonia. It's a great film, but that resounding message is you got to know it, then you got to love it, then you got to take care of it. I try to promote slowing down. It's easier as I get older. One of the best ways to see nature is at a walker's pace. I truly believe that small actions matter and can have outsized effects. And we see this. Community science is one example. Many people providing one small piece of data or action makes for a big data set, big outcomes. Same thing with bird banders. I have contributed, along with Lise and all other bird banders, one data point, one bird at a time. And yet almost everything we know about population dynamics of birds, where they are, whether they're increasing in numbers, decreasing in numbers, moving their ranges, all because of those individual one pieces. Small actions make a difference. Think of physics, a lever. If you put that fulcrum in the right place, you make the lever long enough, you can do a little tiny action out here and move something really big over there. So keep that in mind. I do. I embrace a sense of wonder. Look for the marvelous and show it off. And lastly, for me, it's critical and necessary to share whatever natural history I know. Bird banding is more rewarding when I'm explaining and sharing the wonder of a bird. A nature walk is more fun when I can share and explain what we are seeing. Leading a horseshoe crab survey and tagging program is more rewarding when others are helping and sharing the amazement. This award has come at a good time for me. I worry too much about the fate of our home planet. Sometimes I wonder if my teaching or attempts to inspire awe and wonder matter. I wonder if I'm effective at all in motivating positive actions on behalf of our Earth or even our local environments, or if what my various walks and programs are simply entertainment. Does this entertainment metamorphose into care and action? I wonder. Elizabeth Colbert's book, The Six Extinctions, put me at ease. We, the human race, may be doomed as we irreparably damage Earth and its climate, but Earth will likely survive. That combined with, I find myself every day trying to embrace Jane Goodall's complete conviction that we each matter and make a difference, and her belief that we can, we will, we must take action for the Earth and her individuals. I guess as I take on both Colbert and Goodall's understandings, that makes me a pragmatic, optimistic naturalist. The nomination of me for this award and all of the wonderful things that have been written and spoken, and your presence and support has been a salve on my questioning spirit, and I thank you. I like to think that we are all naturalists of a sort. There are so many ways to know the natural world. I encourage you all to find your own way to know nature. You don't have to be a scientist chasing down hypotheses. You can do it in a garden, at a bird feeder, while taking your dog for a walk, sketching in nature, listening to an ocean or a wetland full of spring peepers. Watch clouds and mushrooms and wonder, how does that happen? You can write about what you see, hear, smell, taste, or feel in nature. We can all know nature in different ways. My friend Nancy Greenaway understands natural history through poetry. Snowy owl, wide-winged whiteness, sensed before seen, swooping soundlessly under low-lying layers of cloud quilt. White on white, white on gray, soft on soft. Too large to be living and airborne, too white to be worldly and wild. Floating unruffled on drafts of Arctic cold, piercing consciousness not with bill or quill or talons, but with light and motion. Avian divinity, spirited from another dimension, penetrating dusk by force of feathers. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for the recognition and honor of this Distinguished Naturalist Award. It means so much to me. And thank you for all. It encourages me to keep trying to be the best naturalist that I can be. Thank you.
That's the second most Kim thing I've heard all day. Don't forget dessert. always helping us to have a community. So I would like to transition to our last award, and I think I can get there. The plaques today are made from locally harvested cherry tree. They came from my house, and they were sawn by Rob Swanson. When I first started at the Natural History Survey, our plaques were faux walnut made in China. And actually, I was with Kathy Sparks at the RIFCO meeting where they were trying to promote Rhode Island wood products, and we were handing out made in China faux walnut plaques, and I said, that's the end of that. And for a number of years, we bought oak from Thompson's sawmill, and we made the plaques out of that. And then for a while now, we've been using cherry from my house. So that's to get us to the Founders Award, which this year recognizes an arborist and a tree advocate. Another way to segue would be to say that J. Franklin Collins is the father of tree surgery, which I was told by somebody who knew his work well. And so it's, again, a very appropriate that the Founders Award recognizes an arborist. So the Founders Award acknowledges and celebrates the organization's heroes, people or other organizations that have made extraordinary contributions of time, things, money, expertise that substantially advanced the survey's longevity and its mission. Distinguished and GoldenEye naturalists are critical for meeting the survey's mission and are fittingly called out through our other awards. But in 2020, however, the board of directors recognized that credit for the Natural History Survey's success is owed to people whose most important contributions were not necessarily natural historical in nature, whose hard work and generosity are not likely to be recognized with a Distinguished Naturalist Award, but nonetheless deserve recognition. Throughout the survey's history, and especially around the time of the founding, the survey relied on volunteer accountants and attorneys, artists and editors. Our way through critical junctures over the last 30 years was smoothed by timely introductions to people and organizations. Inspired ideas and exceptional donations of money or of time made our greatest accomplishments possible. And so that is why we have the Founders Award for Exceptional Service. This year's recipient of the Founders Award is Matt Largess. And I will read from a letter of nomination to tell you a few of the reasons why we're recognizing Matt in this way. Matt is the ideal candidate for this award, not just because of his considerable financial support of the survey for more than 20 years, but also because of his particular approach to the natural world, that so perfectly exemplifies what the survey works to propagate among the public. Matt first became connected with the Natural History Survey in 2001. In 1999, he had been asked, as an arborist with his own company, Largess Forestry, to view and comment on a 20-acre patch of woodland in Portsmouth known as Oakland Forest, then being considered for development. Matt recognized that Oakland Forest was remarkable as a rare surviving fragment of coastal beech forest, which was once widespread and ecologically important in our region. He was a key part of a successful campaign that galvanized the Aquidneck Land Trust and others to save that forest. With BioBlitz coming to Aquidneck in September of 2001, Matt talked to my predecessor as director, Lisa Gould, about including the high-profile, newly preserved forest in that event. Matt's been involved with every BioBlitz since then. During Matt's involvement with the survey, Largess Forestry has provided tens of thousands of dollars in sponsorship for BioBlitz, including at least something every year from 2005 on. Largess Forestry also provided services at a discount for our projects at Napatree Point and Norman Bird Sanctuary and elsewhere. Matt talks volubly about the survey any chance he gets, and he can be seen wearing Natural History Survey gear as he pursues his natural, historical, and sailing interests all around the country. And if you want to have fun, you can do a scavenger hunt where you do a Google image search for Matt Largess, and then see if you can find BioBlitz t-shirts. All over the country, you'll see pictures of Matt doing some exquisitely Matt thing in a BioBlitz t-shirt. Possessed of an almost unbounded enthusiasm for nature and a deep felt urgency to save it, Matt throws himself into all kinds of conservation causes. Some of them quixotic, like his search for the surviving ivory-billed woodpeckers. Others highly impactful, like saving Oakland Forest or a certain cypress swamp in Florida. He leads tree walks for conservation groups all over the Northeast. He has a long-standing neighborhood urban tree planting project in the Providence urban area. The survey has benefited greatly in numerous ways ever since Matt Largess got excited about what we do and how we could help his overall goal to convince people that the natural world is too awesome not to save. So to help recognize Matt, before I have Matt come up, I'm going to have Peter Warny come up. Peter had a few words that he wanted to say about some adventures with Matt. So Peter.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Peter Warny, and I've been involved with the Rhode Island Natural History Survey for way over 20 years. My, how the world has changed. I'm going to say a few words and to have some fun trying to roast and embarrass my good friend and buddy, Matt Largess. Although, I don't think Matt really ever gets embarrassed. His attitude is kind of like mine. It's all fun and games until a tree falls on you. Luckily, that hasn't happened to either one of us yet. When I first met Matt on one of his eloquent tree walks, preaching about trees and giving his talk with passion and verve, there he was. I thought, man, this guy is almost as much of an eccentric, loose cannon, crazy natural history geek as I am. He's like my brother from another mother. So he and I kind of bonded and really enjoyed walkabouts in the woods and looking at trees and birds and plants and insects and bugs and fungus and ticks and everything else. So whenever you go on a walk with Matt, you're going to learn a lot and you're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And I remember him preaching and telling stories about shrubbery in Newport and about big trees on PGA golf courses all around the country, and living at the Alton Jones Field campus among the big forests of trees there. And the next time I met Matt was in Massachusetts at a BioBlitz. It was when Mitt Romney was the governor of Massachusetts and decided he had a plan to cut and harvest and sell trees in state parks. Well, neither Matt or I or a lot of other people thought that was a really good idea, so we went over there to have a BioBlitz in Agawam State Park in central Massachusetts. And Matt was there with his twin teenage sons. He has teenage sons. And I met them, and we're talking to have a good time. And I looked away, and then I came back, and his sons disappeared. They were gone. Where did they go? Well, they were up about 80 feet high, up in big oak trees like squirrels running around the canopy from limb to limb. Matt, you taught them well. And you taught me something that day, too, about the real world of bureaucracies and politics and economics and natural history. You said, when you go into a state park, you won't see any trees marked for cutting from the road. But if you walk around them behind the road on the other side and look back, you'll see the spray-painted mark on the trees. And sure enough, that's where they were. They were going to cut down hundreds of trees, but no one would ever really know it if you were driving on the road. Matt is part Tarzan of the trees, and he's also part Julia Butterfly Hill. Namaste. Namaste. I don't know if Matt ever actually lived in a tree like Julia Butterfly Hill did, but I know Matt has lived in big forests like Voluntown State Forest in Connecticut, which I've been to, but not with Matt. And another field trip that Matt said I had to go on with him. So I stayed over, he invited me to stay overnight at his house in Jamestown on Connecticut Island so we could get an early start in the morning. I said, where are we going? He said, we're going to the Grand Canyon of Rhode Island. Has anyone ever heard of the Grand Canyon of Rhode Island? It's kind of like a wooded ravine that's really cool. Now, I've been to the Grand Canyon in Arizona, and I've also been to one called the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania, big rocky gorges. And I was a little skeptical about the Grand Canyon of Rhode Island, but I knew it would be very interesting going there with Matt. In fact, it was extremely interesting. That ravine is where I first hugged a tree. It was a beech tree. They say you always remember your first. And ever since then, I always think beech trees are very charming with that nice smooth gray bark. And I think I took some pictures of Matt and I hugging trees. Now, Matt is a real world ecologist. He knows about the politics and the bureaucrats and the neighbors and the complainers and blamers and all that when he does all these tree inventory projects, as I said, in golf courses and estates and properties and all over the country. So I love going to the Grand Canyon of Rhode Island with Matt. Matt will always be on my A-list of field people to go on field trips with. I've been on a lot of field trips with a lot of people, a lot of places. When I used to work for the Nature Conservancy and National Audubon, and I've been on a lot of field trips. But going on a field trip with Matt is unlike any other field trip you've ever been on. If any of you have never been on one of Matt's field walks, and I hope you all have, but if you haven't, I highly recommend you putting that on your bucket list. You will not be disappointed. As I said before, you will learn a lot and have a lot of fun doing it. Now, the next big adventure I went on with Matt was a boat trip to Dear Prudence. Yes, Prudence Island in Narragansett Bay. Matt was doing a tree inventory there of trees on Narragansett Island. So we went out there, and it was great. More tree hugging, more jokes, more stories, and lots and lots and lots of trees. Now, our next future field trip that we keep talking about, Matt told me about it about 10 or 15 years ago. I've been there, Matt's been there, but we never got to be at the same place at the same time. But Matt, we're going to try to make that happen in the future. And that is a big primordial bald cypress tree swamp forest in Florida. It's at the Lake Arbuckle Wilderness area, where there are cypress trees over 1,000 years old. To get there, you have to wade in about 5 feet of water. And I've seen some of these enormous trunks of trees. They're the few lucky ones that didn't get cut down by all the deforestation that happened in Florida and every place else. So it's a really primordial swamp forest, as I said. When I went there by myself about 10 years ago, I said I felt like I was in that movie, The Princess Bride or Lord of the Rings, a big primordial forest with very, very, very big trees. And Matt is a person who can truly notice the forest from the trees. He looks at the big picture, and he also looks at the very tiny little picture, too. There's one thing about Matt and I often talk about saving the environment and what you could do. And there's an old saying that goes, when it comes to help saving natural environments, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I know that Matt really cares about saving trees and the environment and everything that's connected to it, because everything is connected. And the one last thing I want to mention, and it's obvious to me, that Matt loves trees, and trees love Matt. Thank you all very much. Good work. Keep up the good work, Matt.
Matt, come on up. The Founders Award is a perpetual plaque that hangs in the survey office. It's made of local cherry.
Wow, big.
Hello, everyone. So great to be here and what an honor. You know, the Natural History Survey is my favorite group. And all of you out there, I love you. And there's a lot of amazing naturalists, scientists that are in this room. So to be up here is greater than the Heisman. It's greater than the Emmys. It's like a dream come true. So I really wanted to thank everybody, especially David. The thing about David is his ability as a scientist, as we all know, is incredible. But he's a scientist that sees others like myself and amateurs and everyone he includes. We do have the longest BioBlitz in the nation, as we all know. And it's just so great to give the money. It's not always easy. I started Largess Forestry the day the space shuttle blew up in 1986 with $9,000. And I was over in Newport, and I went in for my first coffee, and the space shuttle was flying out of the sky, and people were crying. And I'll never forget when I learned that day that the scientist that was on that, the teacher from New Hampshire, what's her name? Do people know that? McAuliffe said, "I'm shooting for the stars," the last thing she said. And that day I committed to shooting for the stars, to be the best I could be. And look where I am now. Traveling the United States, working at the Palisades Fire, studying bristlecone pines. I just got back from Maine. Ironic that the other naturalist that was, from Maine, I was there, and, 700 acres on the Penobscot River. And I just got back. And Wednesday I'm going back to Oregon and then back to the canyon. So it's quite a story. I have a lot of stories. Don't get me talking. We'll have to go to midnight. I'll try to keep it short. But, I grew up in Jamestown. My dad was a Navy captain. There was from a family of 8. I couldn't sit still. I was told at a young age, take these pills, kid. You got to keep calmer. So I'd put them in my mouth and never take one and spit it out. And, I always had trouble as learning. I always had trouble sitting still. Still do, by the way. But from then, I just kept going, and I ended up going to a naturalist and, a landowner in Jamestown, gave me an axe and a saw and said, clean this forest up. And then I was hooked. Then I knew what I was going to be. And I ended up going to Paul Smith College in the Adirondacks, where I literally majored in space, smoking marijuana, and drinking at the water hole. And I was an alcoholic and did not know. I just received 41 years sobriety. I'm still thirsty because it's amazing when you're an alcoholic how much you still love that bar back there. But that's okay. It's not everybody that drinks is an alcoholic, okay? So from then, my career took off and I just kept working. I still work. I have a crew today doing 2 jobs. With chippers and chainsaws and still pruning, my bread and butter. And, it's amazing. We talked about, thanks so much for being what I really am. And, Oakland Forest was the changing point where I got the call to cut Oakland Forest down. And I said, there's no way I can cut this forest down. And it was just a changing point. And there is a book written about it called Tree Hugger. And it's really quite good if you want to get it. It's pretty funny, and it's really about me and about that forest and what it did. It was a changing point. And since then, I've been in many, many magazines, newspaper articles. I'm always like this, the head of the Voice of the Forest, the front page, but all you people, the unsung heroes, the Robins, all of you, everyone here, you know, you're amazing. Everyone here should be here. Everyone is here with me today, in this room and beyond. I can't say enough about Forrest Kara. Could you everyone give her a hand again? The BioBlitz, the world record BioBlitz we are now, but she loves it so much, it's amazing. She almost cries when she talks about it. Or when it ends and they're folding the chairs about next year. I can't wait. You know, that's what this is about, commitment. It's about an amazing group where we are the smallest state, but we're the greatest state. You know, I'm working in California now with the movie stars Hollywood. What happened was a kid started that fire near Lady Gaga's house. People don't know that story, but I knew it before the investigation was going on. I got the call. I hauled sailboats to California, went to REI to buy sneakers, and met a lady that owned Paramount Studios. And she said, "Can you come to my house? You're an arborist." So now I have my 4th trip coming up to the Palisades. You know, it's just amazing what little things can happen. And to be here is just greater than that. There's no greater than this day for me. Believe me. Thank you so much. You know, from Oakland Forest, and a lot of people don't realize the ivory-billed, which I'm talking about, the ivory-billed woodpecker, I was involved with that from the beginning, of course, because that represents old-growth forest from around the world, right? So what happened with the ivory-billed woodpecker? A guy called, Matt Renner from The Deadliest Catch, and said, "Hey, do you want to be a movie star? You're going to be on the next, after Deadliest Catch designed, you're going to be the next reality star." And Daryl, who I want to stand up, was in the show with me. They flew us to Florida. And Captain Harry, which the other star, and he would be a cross between John Wayne and Donald Trump. And I was the Nantucket naturalist, and he was the redneck cowboy from Florida, and Daryl was the pretty girl in the middle. We filmed 12 episodes. I went to Hollywood, and I said, "Wow, I'm going to be a movie star." It was called Ego. I learned about my ego. And I was on the plane, and I couldn't believe how big time I thought I was. And what happened, a few weeks later or a month later, they said, "Hey, the show's not going to happen, sorry." Talk ego deflation, boom, in the balloon. Guess what? Best thing that ever happened to me. Ego deflation. One of the best things that could ever happen. And so many things have happened since then, including finding Arbuckle Creek, because I said I'm going to find the ivory-billed. The ivory-billed woodpecker is kind of like Bigfoot to a lot of people. But to me, it's an amazing story. James Tanner, who went from Cornell in a Model A and met an autistic J.J. Kunt, and he had a sign of a pileated and he had a sign of an ivory-billed, and the J.J. Kunt, who was autistic, would be going boom, 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 boom to the bird, pointing to the ivory-billed. And Tanner knew. He was like David. He knew this guy knew. And they went into the forest to the Singer track, Singer sewing machine, the last virgin forest left in the southeastern United States, 81,000 acres, was still red wolves, eastern cougars, and ivory-billed woodpeckers. They went in all the way, it took 6 days. Guess what? Kunt said, and they found the nest hole. The beginning of the historic journey of the ivory-billed, the most famous bird in the world, as Kim will tell you, one of the great birders we have. That just is mind-boggling what happened. And then Alan went down with a wagon and brought the first films of birds in the wild. Was that Singer track. So of course what happened to me as being an alcoholic, I became a ivory-billed-aholic. So I've been to every ivory-billed forest that I can go to. And I went down to Florida. I went down to Arkansas after it was seen. And I, went with to Lanu, who got the video. Do we all know about the famous video of the ivory-billed? Okay, so what happened, I was down there briefly before that, and then he supposedly got a video. So I'm also a sailing coach, so part-time, I was over at NK with the sailing team. I came back to my house in Jamestown. My twin boys came to the door and said, "They found your bird." I actually picked Gary up and threw him through the air at least 50 feet. I could not believe it. I ran upstairs, and it was on the TV. It was on every newspaper in the world. It was a viral story like no other. And the phone started ringing off the hook because my name was in a lot of these searches. And I'll never forget where I ripped the phone right out of the wall. And so it's funny that that story never went. So if you don't know about the Tree Hugger book, please read it because it's inspirational. And it's all about you and all about unsung heroes. And there is a new book coming out called $1 Million Pecker. And that was going to be the name of the TV show, so I have actually signed to write this book. I need a ghostwriter because I still have a hard time writing. But it's the story when Peter talked about Arbuckle Creek, where these giant trees, and I would have never found the giant trees if the show wasn't canceled. And then my tree business exploded because I put all the energy into that. So my goal is to go find the ivory build, you know. I know it's a long shot, but I'm a long shot, you know. And so you guys are here today with me. I do want to say again that I love all of you very much. Many people came here that I care for, and it's incredible that I am getting an award with this group. You guys are big time, okay? And it was great to hear about the other scientist. What was his name? James Franklin Collins, who was the father of tree surgery. Kind of ironic, isn't it? So I do live in Voluntown in a cabin. I do have a place in Jamestown, too, part-time. It's so great. I don't have a whole lot more to say, except thanks my mom and dad. My mom lived to be 101, had 8 kids. My dad was a naval captain and got shot in the head 4 days after the war with a Time photographer in the plane, and then went back and had 8 children. He lived to be 92. And you know what? Your parents are everything, and your family's everything. And, Pete and Gary didn't come, because once your little kids get bigger, they go on their own lives. That's okay, too, I do love them very much. And I wanted the little guy to stand up over here with, is she there? They had to go, okay. How about the little gal with the guy from Block Island? Can she stand up? Did they go? The future of the world. One thing about the BioBlitz, the kids, okay? The future of the world. So I hope to see you all again, and thank you so much. And let's do one more quiz. The state tree of Rhode Island, raise your hand if you know it. What is it? State tree of Vermont. State tree of Maine. State tree of Massachusetts. Anyone got a hand? Nope. Bah. Any guess? American elm. State tree of Connecticut. White oak. Okay. Thanks again, and send all your money to David Gregg, okay?
Well, I can't really top that, so I won't. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we will see you again soon. We have a program on December 6th at URI in the pharmacy building, and that's Ali Kosiba, who is a forester, and we'll be talking about forest health and climate change. Thank you.